Welcome back for another video. As always, every Monday here we're going to discuss the best players to buy for next Gameweek and beyond, using projection data which is from FPL Review. Let's get straight into it. Starting off with a look at the keepers then. It was another unpredictable week for clean sheets. The favourites to keep one all conceding. In fact, only Newcastle, Nottingham Forest and Southampton actually kept one on the weekend. Vicario tops the Gameweek 11 projections, of course, with the home fixture to Ipswich. So should we be looking at Spurs' defence then? Vicario's next 5 Gameweek projections aren't as impressive, and he does have Man City in Gameweek 12. In fact, right below Vicario here is a Nana, who hasn't been in the conversation much this season either, but he's actually the second top scoring keeper, and he's got slightly better projections for the next 5, starting with Leicester home in Gameweek 11. It will be Van Nistelrooy in charge again for this one, so thanks everyone that corrected me in Sunday's video. Amarin won't be in charge until Ipswich onwards from Gameweek 12 after the international break. Looking at the longer term projections, Raya's 19.2 sits top of all keepers, but Arsenal just haven't been as convincing as of late. No wins in their last 3, no clean sheets in their last 6. The international break could come at a good time for them, with the likes of Ødegaard coming back from injury. They could come back from the break in better form. I'm still very reluctant to rule out Arsenal defence just yet, but perhaps that's delusion at this point. Where do you all stand with the Arsenal defence? Do you think it's hold or is it time to go? Arsenal of course have got Chelsea away next as well before things start to look better fixture wise. Kelleher's third on the table, but his 7.1 projected points for the next 5 is obviously indicative of Alisson nearing a return, which could be as soon as Gameweek 12, maybe 13. So looking at those sub 5 mil keepers, Sanchez is a pick I really like. He's 4.7 mil now and he's cemented himself as Chelsea's number 1. The perfect entry point is Gameweek 12 given they've got Arsenal next in Gameweek 11. That will have low clean sheet potential, but if you're pressed into a keeper move, he's got quality long-term fixtures all the way till the new year, including Leicester, Everton and Ipswich in there. He's only 11% owned. Colwill also a potential gem. Let's move on to defenders. Pedro Porro and Udogie top the table this week for the Ipswich fixture. As frustrating as they've been, you easily give them this game week and then you consider dropping them when they've got Man City. After City, they do have Fulham home, so there is the option to bench him if your team allows it in Gameweek 12. So we've got Dalot, Martinez and De Ligt all on the table this week. I like Dalot the most, and then Mazraoui, who's actually not on the table here. I mean, Dalot's got to be the favoured pick for the next 5 game weeks, but he's the priciest of them all. If you don't buy him this week, then you probably don't buy at all. After Leicester, they've got Ipswich, Everton, which isn't bad, but then it's Arsenal, Forest and Man City. He's a very appealing pick for the next 3 though, and that's probably just about the smallest game week range that I'd consider buying a player for, outside of a 1 or 2 week punt before a wildcard. So are any of you looking at Man United defenders for the next 3? 8 Nori creeps in at the bottom of the table here with 3.6 projected points. As a reminder, he's on 4 yellow cards, so just ensure you've got sufficient depth in your team if or when he picks up that 5th, or should be a 1 match suspension. It is the perfect entry point now though with a home fixture against Southampton. There's no other Wolves defenders that I think is worth looking at. Ballon Dawson is 4.4 mil, but for an extra 0.3 mil you're buying so much more gold for it. We've got to mention Aina as well after that 15 pointer. In my eyes, I think the boat sailed there. Newcastle home next won't be easy, and then it's Arsenal away. Ipswich home is just about the only fixture you'd be happy starting him in for about the next 7 game weeks. Vardiel just misses out making the list after scoring last game week with 3.5 projected points this game week away to Brighton. He's averaging 4.9 points per game, which is very respectable. That's more than Johnson, Havertz and Isak to name a few players. About the same as Watkins and Solanke. Which brings me back to Trent then. He is the most expensive defender in the game at 7 mil, but he can absolutely go toe to toe with many midfielders and forwards priced the same. I do think it's a bit dangerous to write him off as an option. 3.36 expected goal involvement is comfortably highest of all defenders. 19 chances created, so just under 2 per game on average. He's not an immediate rush to buy right now, with Liverpool's next 4 reading Villa, Southampton, Man City, Newcastle. Game week 15 is a really good entry point for Trent from Everton onwards. If it lines up near the time, I'd love to have him from game week 15, but if you've got him already, he's got to be an easy hold. Speaking of Liverpool actually, we saw Robertson benched in their last league match, Tsimikas getting the start there. I absolutely love Robertson as a player, but his level has dropped over the last year, and I think it's time to move him on if you've got him. Right now he's an unreliable pick. Van Dijk and Trent the 2 to consider. Konate of course the other one for 5.3 mil. Now he went off with an arm injury against Brighton at half time. He posted on Instagram, "My injury isn't serious thankfully. I had a scan today and it confirmed there's no break. I'll be ready for the next game." On to the midfielders, and I should caveat this first that the only reason Palmer's missing here is because of the yellow flag. It should be safe to assume he's fine, in which case that would put him on 5.4 projected points this week, in 5th place after Son, Salah, Bruno and Mbumo. So Son is top this week, and it's a genuine shout for captaincy, with the biggest upside of the lot as well, given his lower ownership. He only made it to 55 minutes against Villa though, and he looked furious after coming off. Postecoglou said the plan was only to give him around 55 minutes. So does he get enough minutes to be a captaincy contender? Well, this is where predicting minutes is a valuable skill in FPL, and it's quite overlooked. If I was to put Son on 75 minutes, that would put him on 6.4 projected points, and he drops below Salah. Or is 75 too low? His current default is 85, which puts him top of the table here. So is Bruno Fernandes back in the conversation? He has to be with those next 3 fixtures, and he got his first league goal of the season on Sunday from the penalty spot. Let's not forget he also scored a brace against Leicester in the League Cup, which is who they face next at Old Trafford, though it was a very rotated Leicester side of course. Rashford makes the table as well, but too unpredictable for minutes for my liking. 72 minutes last game week, 58 the week before. Bowen has shot up the table this week with West Ham home to Everton. He's on 5.3 points. If you've got him, you keep him. However, after game week 11 he's got Newcastle away, Arsenal home. Game week 14 looks like the week we should be looking at him. And they've got Leicester, Wolves, Bournemouth, Brighton and Southampton. Really solid 5 game week stretch for West Ham's main man. If you can get from Foden to Son or Salah, then it makes a lot of sense. Otherwise there is merit in giving him one more week. Switching to Bruno also looks like a sound play for the next 3 game weeks, and then shift Bruno on. Honourable mention to Rodgers with Villa's only goal in the 4-1 defeat to Spurs, his 5th return of the season. Given they've got Liverpool next, then benching is logical. But he's one to keep at the back of your head from game week 12, and Villa have got 3 home games in 4 against Palace, Brentford and Southampton. The other budget midfielder to mention is Semenyo, who costs just 0.2 mil more now, and he scored against City and he took all 3 bonus points. Rodgers and Semenyo are actually both on 44 points after 10 game weeks. Longer term, the projections do favour Semenyo from this week, given the fixtures that Rodgers has now. Semenyo is great to buy this week though, up against Brentford, who are yet to keep a clean sheet this season. Brentford and Wolves are the only teams who haven't kept one yet. Semenyo is on 4 yellow cards, so one more is a 1-match suspension. Let's finish up with a forwards discussion. This week, Haaland just about leads on 6.2 points, Solanke 6.1. So Salah and Son the favourites for captaincy over Erling, but they're all good options for game week 11. Is it time to sell Haaland then? Substantial drop off from his early season form, 4 blanks in his last 5. It's a massive dip in form, but he will be back hauling at some point. The question is when. 3.59 expected goal over the last 4 game weeks is well in front as top in the league, so it's remarkable how much he's underperformed. Man City's squad is stretched with injuries, which hasn't helped. It was a surprise to see De Bruyne back on the bench last game week, but he must have been way off match fitness, having not been used despite City trailing the game. If you haven't got Cunha, then there's an undeniable opportunity to downgrade Haaland to him, and then a midfielder up to Salah. It was the same story last game week and it was rewarded. Nothing's guaranteed in FPL though. You're taking on a risk against Haaland's massive ownership, but I suppose it's worth pointing out Salah's ownership's only rising as well. And he could be back with a hat-trick next week, De Bruyne's starting for all we know. It could be the time to look at Isak as another possible Haaland replacement to fund Salah if you're making the switch this week. Goals in 3 consecutive games in all competitions. He's finally starting to show some of the form that we expected back in Game Week 1 when he was a hugely popular pick. If I recall, he might actually been the most owned player in Game Week 1. He's just 13.5% owned now. Aside from Isak, Watkins is the other semi-premium forward that I'm looking at. For him it's from Game Week 12 and Villa have got those 3 home games in 4. Not a sensible buy this week before Liverpool of course. Strand Larsen looks like a sound pick. He's been ticking along this season. I'd still say if money's no object, Cunha's the better pick. His underlying numbers are superior, and he's got penalties, but obviously a good 1 mil separates the 2. And it was Strand Larsen who scored on the weekend, Cunha with an assist that match. Thanks for watching. If this was a helpful video for you, hit subscribe. There's lots more great FPL content to come this week before Game Week 11. See you soon for the next one.